I have a problem with Rickey Gibson III. And my problem is that he held Tennessee hostage for money. I think that's pretty obvious by now, right, Caleb?
Yep, I think it is.
Okay, he had Jermod McCoy, and he was able to really be a kind of jackwagon about the whole situation. And I don't know how that leaked exactly, but I would suggest that it was Tennessee's coaches leaking it to the media so that they are in defense of themselves when it comes to Rickey Gibson III. Now, if I'm Rickey Gibson III, I'm one day I'm going to look back on this decision and I'm going to say to myself, man, I really screwed up. Now, if he goes on to the NFL, please hit the like button if you don't care. Hit that thumbs up. If he goes on to the NFL and he makes a cajillion dollars, then no, he's not going to look back at it. But maybe he will. Tyler Bray, Josh Dobbs, they love coming back to Knoxville, don't they? They love having a home. When you choose a school, you choose a home. And I don't think Tennessee's fans are going to be at all happy with Rickey Gibson III unless he has like 15 interceptions this year. I think you're so short-sighted to do something like this. And I don't believe we're talking about millions of dollars. Listen, I'm all about NIL. Make yours. I'm all for it. And I realize you have a limited opportunity to make it. But here's the thing that people don't realize. I know dozens, Caleb, dozens of former athletes that played at the University of Tennessee, kept their nose clean, even in some cases they didn't, and they got treated very well by potential employers. And Caleb, Rickey Gibson may have a great NFL career, but I think that has been oversighted. And I believe when it comes down to it, if you had Rickey Gibson III and let's say Nico Iamaleava, who's not going to need the money, but you had those two and you're a hiring agent, you're going to hire Rickey Gibson III. So had he left, I would have more respect for him, Caleb, than he came back and it was just a money grab. That to me was just distasteful. And I'm the NIL guy, man. I wanted these players to get paid 25 years ago. But this is ridiculous.
So basically, you're trying to teach kids about the lesson of don't burn bridges because you never know when you might need them later. Like you may think you can negotiate NIL because of the NFL and make some enemies, but be careful. I'm going to break with you a little bit. I'm going to be honest. I'm not so sure that I understand your point of having a problem with it, but I'm not so sure that it wasn't a smart move by Rickey Gibson at the same time. Because here's the thing. Yes, he may not make the NFL, but that could be why he was trying to negotiate more money. Maybe his thought process is there's a 50-50 chance I miss the NFL. I now have a chance to make a lot of money for myself because of this Jermod McCoy situation. Why not go ahead and use it to my advantage? I mean, I get what you're saying is like, don't burn too many bridges. But Dave, if every player is doing this now, is Rickey Gibson really going to burn any more bridges than other former players would?
Okay, I mean, let me ask you this, though, Caleb. Let's pretend we don't know what the money was, but we were discussing this with Jimmy Himes when this happened. And let's say it's 100 to 150,000. Let's say it's 200 to 225,000, a modest raise of 10%. We'd all like a 10% raise. Who wouldn't? But let's say that's the case. Then do you still defend him because you put the team in turmoil? You put yourself in front of the team and well, I don't know how that sits with his teammates. Now, I do think his teammates will be okay with it because they want to get paid too. But I think it's the fan base who's going to have a problem with, Derek says Rickey Gibson agent isn't welcome in the state of Tennessee. I just think the poor kid got bad advice. And I hate this for him. Listen, if Nico wants to negotiate $2 million a year or whatever it was, then I'm fine with that. If you want to negotiate that coming in, but to hold somebody hostage right before spring practice, and Mick says all players are trying to get as much as they can. They are, but if this is a modest raise, which I don't think they broke the bank for him, I don't think they went from 100,000 to 2 million. But if they continue to have themselves held hostage, then this is going to happen over and over again. And I'll say two things. I worry it's a desperation move by Josh Heupel. And the other thing, I wonder if Rickey Gibson has talked to Jamad McCoy about how bad that knee injury is.
No, I think the latter part is very clear. And I don't even think Rickey Gibson has to have talked to Jamal McCoy. I think the team knows how bad it is for Jamal McCoy. And I think that's the reason Rickey Gibson knew he had the leverage to negotiate like this. I think that I would look, I'm just breaking with you because what if he went, okay, what if he's making 100,000 and he goes to Josh Heupel and says, you need me for 150,000 this year because you need me. I'm like, that's 50,000 that is, Dave, let's be honest, it's significant. And maybe you say he's taking a risk because he may not make the NFL. I say he's banking on this is a backup plan. I may not make the NFL. I need to maximize my value what I can. And
that's fair. But what about the fact that do you think this happens if Jamad McCoy never gets hurt?
No, Rickey Gibson doesn't have the leverage, but he has the leverage now. And look, here's the truth. Coaches are going to be more desperate now. This is the NFL. I mean, let's think about it this way, Dave. Unfortunately, in the NFL, teams that have glaring needs at positions give free agents a little more than their value, don't they? Doesn't that happen all the time in the NFL? They cave to holdouts.
Oh, absolutely. It certainly does. Today's tough question. Will you ever root for Rickey Gibson III? I want that to be the poll question. And I don't care if he has 12 interceptions, if he has 80 interceptions, or 0 interceptions. Will you ever root for Rickey Gibson III? Because I thought what he did was absolutely distasteful. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott. Great comment from David. Taking advantage of a teammate's injury is what's so wrong. I agree. Timothy weighs in, and he's got a super chat for Caleb Calhoun, which will go to Quincy Calhoun's college fund.
Yes, and he says that set a cap on NIL. Timothy, they can't set a cap on NIL. It's like legitimately against the law for the NCAA to set a cap on NIL. So,
and here's why. Because there's no union to negotiate on their behalf, which is why I've said there needs to be a union. I'm not saying there needs to be a union for Norfolk Southern or anybody like that, or the Knoxville News Sentinel for that matter, which I once worked at. I think there needs to be a union for those people that are making so much money, and I'm talking about athletes mostly, that you have to negotiate on both sides. Because what if Rickey Gibson says this week, I don't feel like practicing? What are you going to do?
Well, yes, that would be problematic. And then there's some things you got to do. But I mean, players in the NFL hold out all the time. So, I mean, it's just the way things work. I still maintain, Dave, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of, I'm of the mindset that even if you do a salary cap or what you're talking about, if you unionize the players, you still can't put a cap on NIL. NIL is money they make independent of the school. I mean, that's just,
Well, let's change this from NIL to pay for play.
Yes, you've got to put a cap, but right now it's just NIL still. Like the school's getting the $20 million to pay for play. That hasn't happened yet. So this is just NIL money that they're negotiating through the school, theoretically. And so what's stopping Pilot from saying to a kid, I want to give him, $100 million to come to Tennessee? I mean, what, you legally can't say no. So
no. Dylan says, I'll root for him, but the moment he gets burnt for a touchdown, I'm going to be one of the loudest voices criticizing him. That's absolutely right. And
he better ball out.
Yeah, he had better ball out. And we are also not talking about the first best corner on Tennessee's roster. This is number 2, right?
He is. He is number 2. He is number 2. But he's going to be number 1 for most of this year. I'll tell you that. He didn't tear his ACL doing something he shouldn't have been doing, like Jamal McCoy. So, I mean,
We know what McCoy was doing for sure.
McCoy was doing workouts in Texas that he shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Kind of like when Casey Clausen hurt his shoulder doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing.
It's vertical jump, because everybody wants to know how high Casey Clausen could jump.
Yeah.
That was a vertical jump. I don't understand. Listen, if I'm writing these contracts, I'm including the fact that players have to work out on campus. Now, maybe they can go home for a couple of days. That's fine. But now that they have money, this is going to happen more and more. The campus, the athletic department's care is going to be much, much better than anybody else that people are going to find around the United States, right?
Oh, yeah, significantly so. Matter of fact, one of the reasons their care is so good is because for so long the players didn't get paid, so all that money went to great facilities and a great medical staff. Funny enough, like how many former players do you know, Dave, that sought medical help from Tennessee rather than their NFL doctors?
Well, I think that yes, they found advice from Tennessee. I also am fine with somebody getting a second opinion. We've seen that happen before. But your first call should go to somebody that's wearing a power tee, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because they have usually the best doctors.